Shane, when you think of great comebacks in sports history, what are some that pop in your mind?
Well, obviously, you got Michael Jordan returning to the hardwood. You got Mary Lemieux returning to the ice.
Of course.
You got LeBron James coming home. Those are the top three, I think.
I think you left an important one out.
What's that?
It's us, here on Ohio Sports Zone. We are back here in Studio C for another year of great coverage.
Well, it was a great weekend for Bobcats football this past weekend against the Hampton Pirates, 59-0. Ethan, what the hell happened?
It was a big win for the Cats. Cats by 59, a 59-point win. It was a bit of a slow start for Ohio, though. They were only up 7-0 after the first quarter. Only up 20-0 at half. This is about where you expected them to be. Ohio usually doesn't blow people out. There was a 36.5-point favorite, Ohio was, going into this game. But they completely took over in the third quarter, Shane. Utter domination, 26-0 in the third quarter. They outgained Hampton the whole game, 420-108, 248-47 on the ground. Shane, I don't care who you're playing. Anytime you hold a college football team to 108 yards, that is very impressive. There is good quarterback play from the Bobcats. Quentin Maxwell and Nathan Rourke both got some time. We expect that from Frank Solich. Ever since he came to Ohio, he's rolled with a two-quarterback system. Quentin Maxwell, 7 for 9, 100 yards, touchdown and an interception, but he recovered well after that interception. They let Nathan Rourke play a lot after Quentin Maxwell threw that interception. Rourke went 6 for 10 in the air for 72 yards, and he ran for 3 touchdowns. Not one, not two, 3 of them, Shane. He was the MAC East Offensive Player of the Week. A.J. Ouellette was back. He was obviously injured after that first play last year. You really just hated to see it. Class guy. He looked like he was back to form. 12 carries for 63 yards. His workload will certainly increase as the season goes on, as Ohio plays in more close games. Dorian Brown, another good game for him. He was an absolute stud last year for the Cats. Stepped up when Ouellette went down. 10 carries, 49 yards. Julian Ross, new name for the Bobcats. 11 carries, 27 yards. Scored twice for the Bobcats. It's going to be interesting to see which combination of running backs they use going forward.
Yeah, and Ohio has done that in seasons past, and we're seeing it early on again, like you said, with Solich going with 2 quarterbacks in the first game against Hampton, a multitude of running backs. He uses 4 or 5 guys who each get multiple carries, and the Bobcats have a couple names here that are very intriguing. A.J. Ouellette, talking about that injury, is one of them. Kind of dive into his role with the team and what the Bobcats were missing when he was out of the lineup.
Yeah, it was certainly more than just the carries and the yards, which were a substantial amount. You look back to 2015, he was an absolutely instrumental part of this team. He went down, I think it was the first or second play from scrimmage. He went for about 45 yards last year against Texas State. Tore up his knee, was out the entire season. Thankfully, lucky enough to get a medical red shirt. He was a leader on this football team. Even when he was injured, you saw him out there. I don't know what it's called, but that scooter thing where you have one knee up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was out there, one of those, for the whole entire last year. He was still an instrumental part of this team, but you could see he was down. You could see how badly he wanted to go out there and help the Cats win. So it's just great to see him back. Even if you're not an Ohio University fan, it's just great to see players back out on the field. You never want to see anyone get injured, Shane.
And how does that open up the rest of the offense? You add that dynamic to the running game. It allows you to open up some options for Dorian Brown in coverage if you want to get him involved in the passing game, or if you want to spell Ouellette on certain downs or certain situations. And what does that do for guys like Nathan Rourke and Maxwell, who aren't as relied on as much to go through the air to get the scores?
Well, Ohio's always going to be a run-first team, so that helps them tremendously when they have one more running back, especially of A.J. Ouellette's caliber, to go out there and eat a substantial amount of carries. The running back depth was thin at times last year. They were throwing guys out there who didn't have carries, who didn't have experience, and sometimes weren't ready to be in the game. So it is a tremendous help for Ohio to be back out there. But I want to move on. Ohio has a huge game, maybe the biggest game of their season, definitely the biggest non-conference game they will play this season. Going to West Lafayette tomorrow, Friday Night Lights, Fox Sports 1, playing the Purdue Boilermakers. Yeah, we're going. We are very excited, aren't we? Going to Purdue. Going to be a big game for the Cats, Shane.
Yeah, first Friday Night Light game for that Purdue program too. So that'll be a cool event for everybody who's going over to Ross-Ade Stadium. 40,000 plus seater, going to be a big venue for the Bobcats. And not that they're not used to playing in these types of stadiums, but it's not on that everyday type of list. So you got to see how the pressure mounts against a Big Ten team. I don't think they're taking Purdue lightly, nor are they taking them too heavily. But, it's going to be a good contest and a good early season marker to see where this team stands heading forward.
A couple of storylines I look at going into this game is who will Frank Solich use as his third running back. He's definitely going to use Ouellette and Dorian Brown, but he likes to work that third guy in there, maybe throw to him out of the backfield. Julian Ross, like I said, had a good game last night.
They had to go against 2 touchdowns.
Dylan Wares had a great game last week, had 5 carries and scored. David Burrows even got 7 touches last week. And Ohio, in addition to the run game, is going to have to throw the ball more. They only threw the ball 19 times last week. There's no doubt this is going to be a closer game. They're going to have to throw the ball more. So we know what Quentin Maxwell can do in the pocket. He's more than competent back there. But I'm interested to see Nathan Rourke really open it up, really throw it downfield, maybe get some play action going and see what he can do with his arm.
Yeah, and the Canadian native is somebody that you've heard great things about as he moved through his respective high school system, as he moved through his junior college system, and heading into Ohio. The coaches really like this guy's skill set. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, Nathan Rourke is an absolute stud, On the option run, we saw him pretty much exclusively run that last week. 3 touchdowns, MAC East Offensive Player of the Week, I should say. His first game, has to be a bright future for the Bobcats quarterback. Real quick, a preview on Purdue, led by head coach Jeff Brom, who was previously coaching at the Western Kentucky University. 30-10 in his 4 years there. 3 bowl games. Really took that program up from nothing. A little fun fact about Jeff Brom. I know Bobby's not here, so we'll sneak in some fun facts for him. Jeff Brom was a quarterback, played for the XFL's Orlando Rage.
Yes, he did, and he also used to play quarterback for Louisville University, and that's who the University of Louisville, and that's who the Purdue Boilermakers lost to last week, 35-28. You want to walk everybody through that game a little bit and what to expect from that first to the second game against the Bobcats?
Yeah, there are 4 turnovers for Purdue in that game. There's turnovers everywhere. They capitalized on some Louisville turnovers. Louisville fumbled the ball twice and on their goal line, which definitely kept Purdue in the game. Purdue was actually winning in the second half of this game. It was a close game. No doubt they played them tough, but Lamar Jackson, just too much to handle. Will be interesting to see how Purdue responds against a lesser opponent than Louisville, let's be honest. Love the Bobcats, but a lesser opponent this week. Coming up next, more college football, Ohio Sports Zone.
Well, Ohio was the only team to win in the MAC East this past week, but that wasn't the only thing that happened in the conference. Ethan, you want to talk about some of the other games that happened this week and some of the other matchups? Let's start with Minnesota and Buffalo.
Yeah, PJ Fleck making his Minnesota head coaching debut was as hype as ever. I was impressed with how Buffalo hung in there. Tyree Jackson, 6'7", 245 for the Buffalo Bulls, ran a 4.5 40. This dude is a great athlete. Only completed 53% of his passes last year, but if he can find a way to heighten that completion percentage, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the MAC. They hung in there. It was a 17-7 game. It was an ugly football game. Buffalo couldn't pull it out. 2 missed field goals for Minnesota's kicker, who was 22 for 24 last year. Evan Carpenter is his name, I believe. Buffalo going to Army this week. Army, a little fun fact about them, another one for Bobby. 54-6 last week. Army beat the Fordham Rams. They only threw the ball 2 times, did not complete a single one of those passes. Not one of them, not one of the 2 passes. 514 yards on the ground for Army. 7 different players scored, 15 different players touched the ball. Let's see how they run that offense this week against Buffalo.
Yeah, they're going to need all of that and then some. We'll see what happens there, but Western Michigan, USC, this was a marquee matchup if you're a MAC fan, getting that Pac-12 opponent in on the early conference schedule there.
Yeah, Western Michigan doesn't have PJ Fleck, and a lot of people were dismissing them as not going to be competitive at all this year, but they hung in there. They're returning 18 of 22 starters. I know they don't have Zach Terrell. I know they don't have Corey Davis. Great players, absolutely going to be big holes in that offense, but 18 of 22. A lot of them are still there, okay? They were up in this game in the 4th quarter. Darius Phillips had an absolutely exhilarating kickoff return, 100 yards all the way back to the house. This is a great Western Michigan defense that returns Robert Spillane and a lot of other good players. Robert Spillane thought he was going to leave the program, but actually decided to end up coming back. Sam Darnold did not play well for USC in this game. It will be interesting to see how he continues to perform in the next 11 games. He was a Heisman favorite for many, but I was impressed by Western Michigan. I would not be surprised at all this week if they beat Michigan State. I know they're a 7-point underdog. Would not be at all surprised if they won that game.
Sam Darnold threw 2 picks in that game. The Jets suck for Sam campaign does not look really good right now. But I mean, you're sure he'll bounce back at some this year. But I really was impressed with Western Michigan. They have, Javarian Franklin and Jamari Bogdan, and Ohio thinks that they have 2 of the top running back duo in the MAC. But that Western Michigan duo is just as good, if not better.
Absolutely.
Western Michigan proved they are a force to be reckoned with. I know the score says it's a blowout. That game was close all the way till the end.
It's a great game.
And what do you think that says about MAC teams in general, hanging with those tough, powerful opponents like USC?
Well, I mean, it didn't really happen a lot this past week. You saw Bowling Green and Penn State eat some pretty bad losses. Kent State went to Clemson, ate a pretty bad loss, but collected some nice paychecks. But it's always nice to see a Western Michigan hang in there. In the first half of that Bowling Green and Michigan State game, it was close. It was a close game. Bowling Green was going for it on 4th down from midfield. Mike Jinks and his coaching staff were playing to win. Not playing to get blown out. They were playing to win. And I love seeing that out of a MAC school. I wish we would see that more often.
Yeah, and speaking of teams playing to win, Boston College snuck a win over NIU this past weekend. Talk about that game.
Yeah, it was an absolutely great game, close until the very end. Ryan Graham, Northern Illinois' quarterback, they hope they can keep him healthy. Northern Illinois last year, they were dropping quarterbacks. Just left and right, they were dropping like flies, kind of reminded me of the Cleveland Browns. Ryan Graham had an elusive 60-yard run to end the first quarter. He has some great, breakaway ability. Northern Illinois had a lot of players that stood out to me on defense. Sutton Smith stood out to me. Kyle Pugh stood out to me number 57. So great stuff from around the MAC. We didn't even introduce you, Mitchell Lyons, but you are back.
I am.
They should just know who you are by now. Mitchell Lyons returns to Ohio Sports Zone.
What's up?
We're going to pick some college football games, if that's all right with you guys.
Do it.
Let's go to the first one. A lot of great matchups this weekend. Number 13, Auburn, travels to Clemson. Mitch, who do you have in this game and why?
I think this is going to be a really good game. When you look at these 2 teams they met last year, it was one of Clemson's close games throughout the year. And this year, Auburn has a quarterback this year in Jared Stidham. He lit up Baylor in the 3 games that he started, 12 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions. Auburn returns 15 starters from a really good team last year. They're picked 2nd in the SEC. And outside of Alabama, they're probably the favorites to win and the only team that can compete. And this game is in Clemson in Death Valley. Kelly Bryant is the quarterback for Clemson. They return a lot of players, especially on defense, from a team that won the national title last year. Kelly Bryant's really fast. I know that there's not a lot to take from their drubbing of Kent State last week, but when you take that away, he's really fast. I think he's faster than Deshaun Watson, actually. But I actually go with Auburn on the road to pull off the upset. I just feel like this is a team now with Jared Stidham. Their offense is going to keep growing. Gus Malzahn finally as a quarterback can run his offense. Sean White couldn't do that last year. He's not as mobile as Jared Stidham.
Do you see the upset like Mitch does, Shane?
I don't know about this week. I think in a later season matchup, that might be something that could come to fruition. But Clemson, early on, number 3, you got to like the fact that they've got the home field advantage playing in their stadium. I think with all those factors combined, it kind of leads itself to a little bit of a Clemson rocking. I'm going to go with actually a more lopsided score than something that would be close. I'll say that Clemson wins by 2 touchdowns.
Agree to disagree here in Ohio Sports Zone. Georgia travels to Notre Dame. Brian Kelly's seat is hot, might catch on fire soon. Mitchell, who do you have in this game and why?
Notre Dame's coming off with absolute destroying of a very nice Temple team. I know they lost their head coach, but they're still a quality team. And Georgia returns 10 starters from a defense that allowed 24 points per game last year. So you really like this Georgia Bulldogs team. But their quarterback, Jacob Eason, a sophomore, is out for this game. And they're starting true freshman Jake Fromm, 6'2", on the road in Notre Dame. I don't think that he can get it done. I know they have high hopes for him. He's one of the most highly touted freshmen in America, but I just like Notre Dame at home. Notre Dame, again, like I said, they had a really good week last week, and I just think that offense, their quarterback's really good. pretty fast. He's going to execute Brian Kelly's offense. I like Notre Dame at home.
Shane?
I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here, and I don't really put too much confidence in Notre Dame in these big type games. I just don't see the production out of them in the past few years, and that's not to talk about the talent on the team or on the field this year, but it really begins and ends at the top. And with Brian Kelly, you kind of see a somewhat dysfunctional operation for this Irish team, and they never really quite have the pieces. They get one here, they get one there. There's some talented players, but they can't put it together for a prolonged stretch. Haven't been able to do that in the last couple years, and I don't see it happening again this year. They'll be around the top 25 for most of the season. They might even, make their way into the top 20 at some point, but they're not going to be an upper echelon team. They're going to get bounced, I think.
College game day in Columbus this week.